Welcome to the Cowboy Up Podcast, where talk is all about the West. This episode is brought to you by White Stallion Ranch and produced by Cowboy Spirit USA. One visit to Arizona, and you know it's a unique state, filled with geographical wonders, vibrant cultures, and rainbows that arc across the sky. Roger Naylor, author of the new book, Awesome Arizona, saddles up to the ranch to share facts that surprise even native Arizonans, including our very own cowboys.
Morning, Alan. It's kind of strange weather around the country. Big snows in the mountains of California and parts of the Midwest. Big rains in Southern California. Tornadoes in the South. And we've had an unusually wet, gray winter. I don't know. Are we coming out of it now? I don't know.
Well, the wildflowers tell us that we're coming out of the winter, and they're happy for the moisture they got over this winter, and I see them on my bike. I ride my bike every day, and I love to see the wildflowers out there. So that's a good time of year when that reflects a wet winter.
You know, I was out riding with Laura last week, and I don't get out on the trails like I once did, and it was the first time in, I don't know, 25, 30 years old. The west end of the ranch, it's sort of that square mile toward the west, and it was just almost as covered with lupin, that beautiful purple flowers. I've seen it in those 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a good wildflower year. I'm not an expert on them, but they sure are nice to look at.
Well, and we didn't have just one rain, but we had a series of rains, which is better for the wildflowers. Right. They want a little drink of water every now and then.
And they were good ones because they kind of, you get a little bit, and the wet mop absorbs more, and the wet ground absorbs more, and so it really worked. Well, I imagine Roger Naylor, who's with us today, he's a big time hiker. He's probably seen some flowers. He's also been called the Dean of Arizona Travel Writers, a road trip junkie, member of the Arizona Tourism Hall of Fame. I'm there with him. He's written over a half dozen books, including Arizona State Parks and Arizona Scenic Roads and Hikes. His new book is, and I've got it, I already had it, loved it, Awesome Arizona. It's a fast-paced, it's a funny but serious at the same time encyclopedia of 200 facts about Arizona. And I know Roger, he knows Arizona like no one else and appreciates it like you and me.
Well, I'm tickled to have him. Always have been, but glad to have him here. And so want to hear some facts I don't know about Arizona, Roger.
Well, I'll give you one fact to start off with. It's a super bloom year. Get out. Do not miss this spring. Like Russell said, it's the best year for lupins I've ever seen in all my years here, but it's getting everywhere. Picacho Peak was more spectacular than I've ever seen it before, and I visit every season. It's starting to fade a little bit now, but it's just starting. I was hiking Catalina State Park yesterday, just coming in. It's going to be gorgeous early to mid-April. The Sororo West, same thing. It's just because of the cooler temperatures, everything's a little delayed. Everything is starting, but fields of poppies, fields of lupins, fields of globe mallows, everything is popping up. So do not miss this spring. Get out and see it.
Wouldn't you say Picacho Peak might be the do-all of spring
Picacho
flowers?
Peak is always a reliable spot. It's one of the most reliable places. They usually have really good seasons. They kind of got, during the dry years, they were kind of skunked. I remember, I think it was 2018, I went hiking there in the spring, and I found one poppy, a single poppy that I designated as the mayor of Picacho Peak. And because I admired his little struggle. I gave him a drink from my water bottle. But, 2019 was spectacular there. This season far exceeded it.
My story on Picacho Peak, my big sister was serving on the court in Washington, D.C. one spring. And so I told her we're going to have a good spring. And she said, go out and take some pictures and send them to me. And I said, of course I will. Good. So I go out to Picacho Peak because that's where, that's where I think the center of it is, and took a bunch of pictures. I had my camera loaded with black and white. How dumb is that? I felt like the biggest fool I could even describe.
You were impersonating Ansel Adams. You were giving her some artistic shots. She should have come and seen them for herself.
How dumb was that?
Well, at Picacho Peak, at least in southern Arizona, when I was still in school, so it was a long time ago, they had one of those super bloom years, and they actually put all of us in buses and drove us up there. And the school bus in lines drove us all through Picacho Peak because it was such a big year. Picacho Peak, of course, is the site of the one and only Civil War battle in Arizona. I can't remember. Is that in your book?
Yeah, it is. That's one of the facts. It's the site of the westernmost Civil War battle in of all. So that's kind of, and it was a really interesting battle. It was,
describe it just a little, would you?
Well, it was, there was the Union column was coming from California, marching towards the Confederate stronghold, which was Tucson at the time. And, they had, there was a small force of Confederates kind of at the pass there of Picacho Peak, because that was along the travel road. And the column was ordered to it sent out two units led by lieutenants to kind of circle around. They wanted to capture the sentries because they wanted to surprise Tucson. But there was a brash young lieutenant named James Barrett, and he just decided he was there's not much glory in capturing a few soldiers, but if he could win a battle, that would be a big deal. So he just attacked. He got there first and attacked. And that ended up into a battle that lasted most of the afternoon. There were only about 24 men involved, but pretty high casualty rate. 3 killed, 3 captured, 3 wounded out of that. And the young lieutenant was one of those who died there. And
the Union won the skirmish?
Well, they won the Confederates' retreat, but it also defeated their purpose of surprising the larger force in Tucson. That was their whole point. They wanted to just capture the Confederates and then still approach Tucson unannounced, but that kind of gave that away. And the brash young lieutenant is still buried somewhere there beneath the poppies. The 3 men that were the 3 Union soldiers that died were buried there. 2 of them were later dug up and transplanted, but they could not find the body of the lieutenant. So he's still there somewhere beneath the poppies.
So that's all real interesting stuff. I'd love to hear that.
So one of the flags, I forget how many flags flew over Tucson. It's famous for.
I think like 5, yeah.
Yeah. So Mexico, Spain, Confederacy, U.S. And so how did that play out then? So the Union comes in they didn't want Arizona to be or Tucson to be a Confederate outpost.
Right.
So what happened after the battle? Did the Confederates just sort of melt away in Tucson?
Yeah, they continued to retreat. There was a battle also with Indians at one of the passes, but yeah, they withdrew to Mexico. The absolute furthest west that an organized Confederate force made was they were burning hay near Stanwick Station, a stagecoach station there. Stanwick Station, not far from Yuma, well, about 80 miles from Yuma, I think. And they were discovered by Union sentries. A couple shots were fired. One of the sentries was wounded, but so that was as far west as an organized Confederate force made it.
And where were they coming from? Were they Texans?
I don't know where yeah, probably. They were probably so, but I cannot swear to that. I know the Union's column that came down was the California column. They were California volunteers and stuff, because the Confederacy wanted the ports. They wanted the wealth of California, and they wanted the seaside ports. They wanted access to that, so that's why they were pushing west, and the California pushback.
So that's kind of, let me just, it's a story about kind of a coincidental tie-in. There was a movie shot here in 1951 starring Ronald Reagan, and it was called The Last Outpost when it was originally made. It was later reissued 61, new name, same movie, Cavalry Charge, exact same movie. And we have both posters, so it's sort of the same. And so it's loosely based on the battle at Picacho. Oh. So Reagan is the Confederate leader, and his brother is the Union leader, and they're there to do battle. But then the Apaches, which of course weren't involved in any of this, came in and threatened the Union cavalry, and they were going to get overrun by the Apaches. And Ronald Reagan comes in with the Confederates and saves the Union from the Apaches. And he's leading. So our big mountains here, Panther and Safford Peaks, are at his back as he's leading the charge. And the Indians are going toward him. And, of course, I know the local topography. The Indians are actually located in this movie 20 minutes south of here. So actually, if you take them literally where they were riding away from each other in opposite directions. But they, of course, movies are movies. Yeah. But not in the movie. So in the movie, they have a battle, and Ronald Reagan, not surprisingly, wins and saves the Union from the Apaches. So last outpost or cavalry charge here at the ranch. Sorry, I jumped on you.
No, I just wondered, why did the Union want Arizona? Why did the Confederacy want Arizona? Who cared?
Well, again, it was just, one more either a slave state or non-slave state. They wanted that. But again, I think the real prize was considered California. If you had Arizona, you could launch attacks towards California, where you had harbors and coastlines.
Arizona was a stepping stone toward taking California.
Yeah, right.
And who owned California then? The Spaniards did, mostly, didn't they?
Yeah, it was not. I don't believe California was a state yet, but I think it was still a territory. But I'm the Arizona guy. I'm not a California guy, so I can't swear to that. But yeah, that's where the Union volunteers, the California column, was formed, and I forget who their leader was, but they're the ones who marched through Arizona and kind of pushed the Confederates out.
Looking back, it seems like things were as confused then as they are now.
Sure.
Nobody quite knows where they're going or why.
So, how did 200 facts? Is that just what you felt would fill a book? Did you already have 200, or did you do some research?
No, I did not. I originally started out, I was going to do 100 facts, and then it kind of kept expanding, so I went to 150 and then got to 200, and I finally had to stop just because I had to turn it in at some point, and it was killing me, because now I've got about 30 or 40 more facts. I keep looking back, going, I wish I would have included this, wish I had included that. That's always the hardest part, writing an article, writing a book, anything, is what to leave out, what I don't have room to include and stuff. So I just kept going. I tried to do a nice little mix of big obvious facts, some little fun quirky facts, but I wanted it to include travel tips and historic stories, and just information about climate, geology, just all the information for people like me who love Arizona that maybe don't have a language for it, that it clears up some of the misconceptions, but also get some information out there.
Will you pick one or two events or items that you think our listeners should hear and probably don't know?
I'll give you, here's two facts that are back-to-back in the book, and I think this sort of describes Arizona perfectly. We have more mountains than any of the other mountain states. Sorry, Colorado. And the next fact right after that is we're the only state that contains all 4 major North American deserts. And that speaks to the diversity of Arizona that I think, people don't quite grasp, that don't spend time here, don't understand stuff. I mean, there are certainly a lot of states that have mountains, but when it's winter in Wyoming, it's winter in Wyoming. Same with Montana or Idaho and stuff. But because we have that mix of mountains and desert, and the Sonoran is the only, and I talk about the Sonoran a lot in here, is a subtropical desert. It's got its roots back in the tropics. It's the wettest desert in the world, and it's the most biodiverse desert, but it's also the only warm winter desert in America. The Chihuahuan isn't considered a warm winter. The Mojave's not. Neither is the Great Basin. Only the Sonoran. So when it's winter in Arizona, if you want to snow ski, you can. If you want to play golf, you can. If you want to go horseback riding, you can. If you want to go snowboarding or hiking out looking for wildflowers, we've got that high and low.
Probably on the same day.
Close proximity.
You can, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's one of the beauties. We have that kind of diversity that other states just don't have. It's not a plane ride to change your season in Arizona. It's a short, you get up in the morning, what kind of experience do you want to have? You're there by lunchtime. Just about anybody who lives in Arizona can change their scenery, can change their season in just a short drive.
Well, one of your facts was you can, ecologically speaking, travel from Mexico to Canada in an hour if you take the Catalina Highway up from Tucson to the top of the Catalinas at Mount Lemmon.
You go through every life zone. We have every life zone found between Mexico and Canada right here in the state. And, that's that's smushed together in 27 miles, 28 miles. So you go through all these different habitats and life zones. That's amazing. I love that diversity.
Yeah. You leave the saguaros and end up in an alpine forest with ponderosa pines and ferns and aspen. So the other 3 deserts are not warm weather deserts. I learned this just now.
Warm winter.
Warm winter, I meant.
Yeah.
I meant warm winter. Uh-huh. So warm winter deserts, is that because their altitude on average is higher? Or is it another reason?
A little bit, but just the type of vegetation, the type of, the Mojave's very largely in kind of a rain shadow and stuff. And even though the Mojave, I wrote a book called Death Valley, Hottest Place on Earth. So the Mojave contains the actual hottest place it's ever been on Earth, just a couple of hours from Arizona, but it's still colder in winter than Phoenix or Tucson is most of the winter. It's still a little chillier. A lot of it has to do with the vegetation being so sparse, it doesn't hold the temperature. So as well, the overnight temperatures get colder, so it takes longer to heat up, whereas the Sonoran, not quite the case. So.
Interesting. Well, on that, we'll take a break.
Thank you, Roger, and thank you, Russell and Ellen. Again, another great conversation. We learn more here by accident than most places by design, and we enjoy the time with you. And we enjoy the time with you, dear listener. We thank you for supporting us. Our program is going and growing and reaching people all over the world, and for that we are very grateful, and we thank you for your recommendations. And we would appreciate if you and your business, your organization would say, we really enjoy this program, and we'd like the opportunity not only to sponsor it and help it go and grow, but we would appreciate the opportunity to be promoted by you fine people. So, that's right. We're looking for sponsors and people who we can help as we go and grow together. So, if you would like to be considered, audition, and see if we can put that together for you and your business and your organization, please reach out to us, and Lynn will be happy to help you out. Just reach out to, here we go, the Cowboy Up Podcast at gmail.com. The Cowboy Up Podcast at gmail.com. And I look forward to being able to put your announcement, your promotion, your great story right here on the radio. And now, back to the program.
Well, Well, I have a question, and we've kind of covered it, but not. If I had to just nail you down and say, what's your favorite part of Arizona? Where, if I said, take me to your favorite spot in Arizona, where would you take me?
Oh, my goodness. Chiricahua National Monument.
Okay.
I think is the most unappreciated place in Arizona.
Describe
one of my,
that just a
one
bit.
of my favorite places for hiking. It's one of the Sky Islands in southeastern Arizona, almost on the New Mexico border. The result of a volcanic event about 27 million years ago. So a massive volcanic event which launched all this lava that rained down and formed into these rhyolite formations that have been chipped away at by the eons of erosion. And so you have these are high mountains crowned by stone spires, columns, hoodoos, an odd collection. It's called a wonderland of rocks.
I think that describes it better than anything. You go up there.
It's an amazing place, and it's enough off the beaten path. It's never crowded. And I love the Sky Islands anyway, again, because it speaks to the diversity of Arizona. I don't know.
Define Sky Islands for us.
Sky Islands
we know that in Arizona.
The southern mountains, the mountains across southern Arizona that are sort of isolated mountain ranges that rise up out of the desert. So the mountain tops form these isolated habitats that are sort of floating in a sea of desert or grasslands. So it does a couple of things. It extends the range of some animals and birds. That's where it's what makes southern Arizona such a popular birding spot, because this is the northernmost edge for birds like the elegant trogon and stuff. People come from all over the world to add to their life list here. This is also where jaguars can actually still come padding up out of the tropics to reach the southern edge of the mountains. They use these Sky Islands as a sort of little corridor. But it also, because some of these mountains are isolated, a lot of species kind of evolve in isolation. That's why there's so many endemic species that exist nowhere else in the world except on these mountains, like the Mount Graham red squirrels and so forth. So there really are a hotbed of life. You can find more than half the bird species in North America in the Sky Islands. There are more mammal species than anywhere else in the United States in the Sky Islands. Scientists believe that there are more species of bee and ant in the Sky Islands than anywhere else in the world. So it's a fascinating place. It's a hotbed of life. It's like our rainforest. It's fascinating just from that standpoint, but the scenery is just so spectacular. That's what I love. You know, if Chiricahua National Monument were in any other state, it would be on their license plate. But here we got the Grand Canyon, we got Monument Valley, we've got all these incredible places, so it kind of gets dwarfed a little bit.
Well, a little factoid that our listeners might be interested in: you can go to the top of one of these Sky Islands, and chances are you'll be able to see two other Sky Islands.
Oh, absolutely.
When you're standing up on top,
at least
you can look
more,
50 miles away and see another Sky Island,
exactly.
and then look a different direction and see another one. And so they're kind of in proximity to each other, but yet each one is individual, has its own characteristics.
Right. They're not connected. The ranges are separate. So that's why they named the islands, where they're just sort of floating out there.
So it's interesting you picked that. My mother, who was a very straight-spoken person, she said, the Grand Canyon, you go to the edge and you look and it's pretty. Her favorite place was Chiricahua National Monument. It was part of the group that helped found that national monument were a Dude Ranch family at Faraway Ranch.
Right.
That's now part of the monument there at the base, and you can do a little tour. One of the very, very early Dude Ranches, 19-teens, I think 16 or so, is when they started. What do you know about that? My partner Jay Wells says it's going to be a national park.
They're making a push to turn it into a national park. So far, to be a national park, it requires an act of Congress.
Yeah, but define right where it is that you're talking about.
The monument.
The national monument. Yeah, Chiricahua National Monument.
Change the name of it to make it into a national
like here.
park.
So our national monument became national park in 92 or 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think that's going to happen?
I think it's certainly possible. I think everything is tough these days in the political climate, but I have kind of mixed emotions about it because on the one hand it would draw more people there, but it's off the beaten path enough. It's never going to get overrun. That's why I never hesitate to tout it, and I want people to discover these beautiful places because the more people that discover them, the more people that want to protect them and that will want to
how would it
save them
change
and stuff,
if it went from a
I don't think that it
park?
would very much at all.
Then what's the point?
Well, again, it just gives it a higher designation, attract more people to that area, which would benefit the small towns. More people would seek it out. Arizona has 3 national parks besides the Grand Canyon, Sororo, and Petrified Forest. But we have 18 national monuments. We actually, and this is one of the facts in the book, we actually have more national monuments than any other state. The national monument can be given as a presidential decree. They can declare it. So, and they include some of our most spectacular places like Organ Pipe Cactus. That's a national monument. Chiricahua, Vermilion Cliffs, which includes the Wave, White Pocket, Paria Canyon. So some spectacular places. Grand Canyon Parashant, that's a national monument. And then also some of our most famous cultural and historic sites like Montezuma Castle, Canyon de Chelly, Casa Grande Ruins, all those are national monuments as well. So,
and in your book, Casa Grande was the first.
It was the very first protected site by the federal government. The very first archaeological. I'm struggling for the word here. The very first archaeological site protected by the government. So yeah.
The Wave, did you just mention the Wave?
I did.
Because it's in your book. And it's just stunning, the photo of the Wave. And it says here that it's an elusive permit to get to do,
it is
to be allowed the 6.4 mile hike in.
It is a hard permit to come by. You have to sign up for a lottery. They do lotteries a few months in advance. And they've just redone the other version of the lottery. They used to do a walk-ins there at the office, but right before the book came out, and so I was able to include this. Now they do, you have to do a lottery kind of within the geo-fenced area. So you can make a reservation a couple of days in advance or try to get the permit a couple of days in advance, but you have to be in that area within a specific
because of the
area.
Technology, they can figure it out.
Do that. So, but yeah, it's a tough place to get. And if you can't get a permit for the Wave, go to White Pocket. It's the same type of incredible sandstone formations, these swooping, curving, beautiful layers of sandstone. Yeah, that's spectacular. No permit is required, but you do need four-wheel drive because it's deep sand to get back there. If you don't have four-wheel drive, there are daily tours from Kanab, Utah, and also Page, Arizona. So look into a tour
White
from
Pocket.
White Pocket, yeah.
So out of Arizona, that'd be out of Page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did a buddy and I were camping there this past summer, and it was just spectacular, just stunning. I got up, I had an incredible sunset, and then I got up early to watch the sunrise. I'm perched out on the sandstone there, and a coyote starts yipping on one side, and he gets answered from the other side. So it's just me and a couple of coyotes watching the sun come up and painting these cliffs. So I started singing along with the coyotes. So
you paint a pretty good picture with that. I love to hear it.
It was beautiful.
Well, you're an acknowledged Arizona expert. You're in the Tourism Hall of Fame as such. Did you learn anything about Arizona in this book?
Sure, I did. I'm always surprised. One of the things I didn't realize how many national champion trees Arizona has. We're always, people always accuse us we don't have trees. There are no trees in Arizona. I'll take Sororos just about any time. But we do kind of have trees, especially since we have the world's largest contiguous ponderosa pine forest spread across north.
That's a fact I give out a lot because no one would see that coming.
I know. But we also have, because I was writing about the largest known cottonwood tree, which is up in Skull Valley. So that was one. And and then but there are, and it changes a little bit because trees die or new ones are discovered. But normally, Arizona has about 40 to 50 of national champion trees. The largest known species, largest known tree of that species, scattered around Arizona and stuff. So that's something I wasn't aware of. I didn't know we had the world's largest skydiving center. Right just north of here, Eloy. Yeah. I knew it was big, but I didn't realize it was considered the world's largest and stuff. So, I love finding out all that kind of stuff.
So I have an odd question written down here that I've been suggested. How did Arizona save the unicorn? My daughter Reagan will want to know.
The Arabian oryx is a big white antelope.
Right.
With black legs, black blaze across, and both the male and female have tall, long, symmetrical horns. And it's believed that these are the animals that gave rise to the legend of the unicorn. They went extinct. They were hunted for their meat, but also for the magical qualities of their horn. They actually went extinct, were declared extinct in the wild in 1972. Fortunately, the Phoenix Zoo was already on the case. An organization called Fauna and Flora International had rounded up just a handful. I forget, I've got it in the book, but it's like a 1 male and 3 females or something, just a handful of the last known ones in 1962. They were transported to the brand new Phoenix Zoo. It had only been open a few weeks, but they thought the climate would be ideal. So the Phoenix Zoo became keeper of the world herd and began a breeding program.
All 4 of them. Huh?
Yeah, 4 or 6 or whatever it was. But yeah, it was so successful that they were able to start sending out breeding pairs to other zoos. And in the 1980s, I think 1981, the Arabian oryx was reintroduced to the Arabian Peninsula. Became the first time in history that a species had been declared extinct in the wild and now was downgraded to just vulnerable. And it was all because of the conservation work at the Phoenix Zoo and stuff. So
that's a great story.
That's a great story that not a lot of people know about.
And I was just going to say, that was brand new to me. I loved hearing that story.
Yeah, I didn't know. Aren't there a bunch of them now in New Mexico?
I think they turned some loose in White Sands and places. So yeah, because it all started with those few at the Phoenix Zoo. They were very successful at the whole program.
Hair's breadth away from extinction and back flourishing. Yeah. Great story. I love it.
World's largest antique.
It's right there in Lake Havasu City, stretching across a channel of the Colorado River, is the London Bridge. It was purchased by Robert McCullough, and they took it apart, shipped brick by brick, stone by stone, and reassembled it there on the edge of Lake Havasu. It just celebrated it 50 years of being here. I think last fall or something, because I wrote a story about it for the Arizona Republic.
Well, I heard about that being moved over there, went over there to see it, and I was underwhelmed. They took the edge of the river and they made a little channel around on the side of the edge of the river so that it would be just enough for the bridge to cross. You walk across and the river's over there, but you're over water. But, it's plain to see it's contrived.
It's a nice channel. It's really grown. I don't know when the last time you were there is, but the channel's really grown up and expanded, and it's.
Oh, has it?
Yeah, it looks really beautiful. A lot of the palm trees, and it's this beautiful channel that everybody, now the boats go out and the surfers go out underneath the bridge and stuff. So the London Bridge is just another happy retiree. This bridge that Jack the Ripper and Charles Dickens and all these, and Florence Nightingale, all these people walked across, and now
being
enjoying a retirement in the Arizona desert.
But being a little bit aware of that history, then I go and look at it, and I was underwhelmed.
To your underwhelmed, McCullough, which was McCullough Chainsaw, etc., did that for Lake Havasu. In England, of course, as you know, Laura's English. So the story in England is that they scammed him And they made him think it was the Tower Bridge, which still stands, which is a beautiful bridge with the two big towers, and instead sold him London Bridge, which is a much less ornate bridge. I don't know. I sort of doubt that's true because I think McCullough was probably a bit too clever for that. But that's what the English think.
Yeah, that's a
Have you ever
popular
heard that
story.
one?
Yeah, it's a popular story, but there's no evidence that that he knew pretty much what he was
I'm
getting
pretty
and
sure.
stuff. So
the English like it.
Yeah, it makes them feel like they got away with something.
Was there an event that made you fall in love with Arizona, or did you just grow up with that?
No, I came as soon as I set foot here. As soon as I came, I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. I grew up watching cowboy movies, so I was kind of fascinated with the West. And so I was interested in the scenery because I could see mountains and canyons and cactus, things I couldn't see from my Ohio door. So I got on a plane and for the first time flew to Denver. And we had a layover there, and I remember I sat down and I didn't budge for about 3 hours because I could see the Rocky Mountains out the window. And then we got on this tiny little plane. I mean, we dusted crops on the way into Flagstaff Airport there, and I touched down and I got off and I smelled that pine-scented air for the first time in my life. I saw the outline of the San Francisco peaks. That was it. I was done for. I was in love. It was, I knew that I was going to live here from that moment on. What surprised me, because I thought I was going to turn into a flannel shirted mountain man, I never expected to become a desert rat. I have no idea what collapse of sanity, what lack of reason, what madness drove me to fall in love with the desert. But here I am.
Well, and I think it's a little bit odd that you're not a native Arizonan. You're an interloper, if you would, and then you're the big spokesman for the low desert.
Those. I think it's usually them. I think you and me. I mean, I was 5 when we came here, but I there was a period of time I took it for granted. And I'm long past that. But as a teenager, I was tired of hot summers and desert, and I wanted to fish and see pine trees. And now I appreciate that you can do all of those things. Arizona's an absolute, you've mentioned it, year-round state. So we're running out of time. Where does the post office, let's talk about where the mail is still delivered by mule.
That's the village of Supai, the most remote village in the lower 48 states. The post office delivers mail by mule, and over an 8-mile trail there. Of course, mail is still delivered by mule to Phantom Ranch, but that's done by Xanterra, the park concessionaire. Although if you're a guest of Phantom Ranch and you mail a letter or postcard, it gets stamped, sent by mule from the bottom of the Grand Canyon. So I was doing Arizona Horizon, the TV show with Ted Simon's a great guy, and he had this idea, and I love this. He said you should send a letter from Phantom Ranch to Supai. So that's my big goal now, is because then it would get taken out by mule, and I guess put on a truck somewhere, but then delivered back down by mule into the Grand Canyon. So I have to make a friend in Supai so I can send him a letter next time I'm in Phantom.
Explain geographically where the bottom of the Grand Canyon and where Supai is. How far apart, and is it the same drainage? And
they're both in the bottom of the Grand Canyon.
Okay.
The Phantom Ranch is in the national park.
Okay.
The Supai is in the Havasupai Indian Reservation.
10 miles distance?
Oh,
20?
no, much more than that. Oh, boy. Down the river, I don't know.
We all want to have a visual of that,
but
in our minds.
It's further west, down river, outside the national park.
Oh, yeah.
So,
because Grand Canyon's almost 250 miles long,
277 miles.
More than 250.
277 miles is the official mileage according to the National Park Service.
Well. All right, so we've got to wind it up. We're going to be in trouble for going long again. Where do people? Your books are available in normal book places.
They're available in
else?
bookstores. You can always get them on Amazon, and you can always go to my website, rogernaylor.com, and read about any of my books, order any of my books, and any book that's purchased through my website is signed personally by me in my almost illegible little scrawl.
Okay, I'm going to look because this one, there it is.
Yep.
All right, that's better than That's pretty good signature, actually. So, RogerNaylor.com. That's Roger, RogerNaylor.com. RogerNaylor.com. And it's easy. I got my latest book on
I appreciate
yours,
that. Thank
just
you.
really easily done, so they can go right to the signature maker himself.
You're really a good guest. It was just a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure chatting with you guys. I really appreciate you having me on. You guys do such a great job, and it's great to be part of sharing this kind of a conversation with people who love Arizona just like I do.
And all we have to do is look at Roger. He's got an Arizona T-shirt. He's got
sure
the most beautiful state flag in America, Arizona's state flag right there on his shirt.
Well, we're honored to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
I'm not sure I ever really thought of dude ranching or White Stallion Ranch as a romantic getaway, but experience is starting to tell me otherwise. I think last season we had 4 unplanned proposals. All fortunately were accepted, and 2 or 3 that were planned where it was all choreographed and someone was asking someone else to marry him. And we've always been a destination for honeymoons, and of course anniversaries are a big thing. Whenever there's a big anniversary trip, people bring their whole family and get the whole family reunion, and people can find their own way through the ranch experience, whether it's horses or all the other activities. But somehow, some way, dude ranching is a place to go for those honeymoons and maybe the place to ask someone to marry you. So www.whitestallion.com, go to the website, do as much or as little as you want, surrounded by the unspoiled Sonoran Desert and all our mountains and views. whitestallion.com.
Well, I just have thoroughly enjoyed our guest today, and it's just it elevates me to hear somebody that is so knowledgeable about Arizona, and just makes me proud of our state, and just proud to be here.
I agree.
That's a wrap for today, folks. If exploring Arizona wasn't on your bucket list, add it now and start planning that trip. If you'd like to hear more episodes with Roger Naylor, visit our website at cowboyuppodcast.com. That's cowboyuppodcast.com. A shout out to Stan Houston's awesome production company. Tune in next week when we continue to explore the West. Until then, I'm Lynn Weezy Sneed, reminding you to sit tall and ride safe.
Storm rolled in from the western sky. 2,000 head of steers took flight. Good night paid those boys to ride, and by damn they would, though some might die. Don't say goodbye to the cowboy way. Tradition lives, and it's here to stay. 100 years and growing strong today. So don't say goodbye to the cowboy way. She's 10 years old on a stout bay horse. 300 years they guide her course from the Spanish quest to the blue and gray, to what we call the cowboy way. Don't say goodbye, don't say goodbye to the cowboy way. To the cowboy way. Tradition lives, and it's here to stay. 100 years ago and strong today. So don't say goodbye to the cowboy way. Rawhide and steel, hooves and horn, legacy to the yet unborn. A code that comes from a hard-lived life. Your destiny when you're born to ride. Don't say goodbye to the cowboy way. Tradition lives, and it's here to stay. 100 years and going strong today. So don't say goodbye to the cowboy way. Don't say goodbye. Don't say goodbye to the cowboy way.
And all of us at the Cowboy Up Podcast, we tip our hats and say thank you to Jim Jones and the Posse for that wonderful theme song we get to play all the time. Don't say goodbye to the cowboy way.